Hi, everybody. It's Mac Prichard, publisher of Mac's List. Thank you for joining us today. And it's right at the top of the hour. We're going to wait just a minute or two while people join us. We've had a good number of people sign up for this event. And we know that schedules can run a little crazy, but we will start about 2-3 minutes after the hour. In the meantime, I want to introduce my colleagues, Becky Thomas, our Digital Marketing Manager, and Ben Forstag, our Managing Director. Do you all want to say hello quickly?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, hello.
So Ben's going to keep an eye on the technical side of things, and Becky is in charge of the comments box. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to let us know those. And if it's related to the topic at hand, I'll stop and answer them. In the meantime, I encourage you to just say hello in the comments box, and Becky will share people's names. And again, if you have special concerns or questions, you can do that. Share those on the comment box as well. I also want to draw your attention to Twitter. We encourage you to tweet your questions at us. Our Twitter account is at Mac's List. You'll see the Twitter handle at the bottom of every page. And please use our hashtag, Mac's List. That'll help us find your questions even faster. And my Twitter handle is there as well. Today, if you want to tweet your questions at Mac's List, that'll get the fastest response. I encourage you to connect with us both on the Mac's List Twitter account and on my personal Twitter account too. And I always enjoy hearing from people on Twitter and do my best to respond as quickly as possible. All right, Becky, do we have any people joining us on the comments box?
Yeah, people are streaming in. We've got over 35 folks here today now, and folks are saying hi in the chat box. So I think we should probably be good to start here in a minute or so.
Okay. We'll wait about one more minute and then we'll get going, because we do want to be respectful of your time, and we know that we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we want to leave plenty of time for your questions and comments after the formal presentation. Okay, well, I think we're ready to get started. Again, for people who may have just joined us, my name is Mac Prichard. I'm the founder and publisher of Mac's List, and I'm here with my colleagues, Becky Thomas, our Digital Marketing Manager, and Ben Forstag, our Managing Director. We've got a simple goal here today. I want to share with you 10 things you can do right now to get the most possible value from your online job postings. In other words, we want to share with you how to create an online job post that gives you the best chance for finding the right candidate or the right candidates for your open positions. And the lessons I'll share with you today are ones I've learned over the last 15 plus years running Mac's List. I've seen what works, and I've seen what doesn't work with online job listings. I'm also going to weave in some of our best practices based on data that we've gathered from a recent conference for job board operators like Mac's List. Again, as I mentioned at the start, but for those who might not have heard me, if you have any questions during the presentation, put them in the comments section, and Becky will give me the high sign and share the question, and I'll answer them as we go. And I know that some people might have to leave early, or others who registered might not have been able to join us today. So we'll make a recording of this presentation, and we'll send it out to you later this afternoon, probably in about an hour, Ben tells me. We'll also send you a survey with just a few quick questions, because we want to get your reaction to this webinar. It's the first time we've done this with employers, and our goal here is to serve you and learn from you and understand your needs. So before I begin, I want to emphasize two important points. First, all the lessons I'm sharing with you are things you can implement at no additional cost. this isn't about selling you an upgrade or some pricey solution to your problems. I want to make sure that you get the most from the investment you're already making in posting your job online, whether it's with MaxList or other job boards. Now, some of my suggestions might require changes in the traditional way you've done things, but again, all of these tips are things that require no additional investment on your part. And then second, everything I'm talking about today are best practices that apply to any job post, no matter what job board you use. Some of you are current MaxList customers, and I'm grateful if you are. Thank you very much. I appreciate your business. And if you're not using MaxList, obviously I'd love for you to give it a try. But regardless of where you're posting your jobs, the tips I'm going to share today are going to help you achieve better results. So let's talk quickly about what I mean by better results. This is really a question of value. In other words, how do we measure value when it comes to online job postings, and how can we get the most possible value from each post? I'm an employer myself, and I'd say that the true measure of value is whether I ultimately found the perfect candidate. Unfortunately, no job board or talent sourcing tool can guarantee to deliver you the right fit. There are just too many factors that go into the hiring process. Things like personality, salary limits, competition, the list goes on. And whatever those factors might be, you can't credit any job board with the actual hire. Instead, it's really about whether your job post delivered relevant candidates for you to review. And this can be measured in three ways. First, quantity. How many applications did you get? Second, quality. Did you get the right kind of candidates? And third, diversity. Did you reach a broad range of candidates? Now, different job boards can prioritize different performance metrics. At MaxList, we've emphasized the quality of the job seekers we deliver, though diversity is a very important value for us. And other sites like Indeed are all about volume, creating the most possible applications for every job posted. There are pros and there are cons to each approach, and I'm not here to tell you which metric works best for your hiring needs. Instead, I want to share tactics that will help your post perform better in each of these three metrics. And whether you're looking for more applicants, better qualified applicants, or more diverse applicants, these are tips that are going to help you out. So let's get to it. And I'm going to go through, again, 10 tips here. Tip number 1, use a clear job title. Now, I know job titles matter within an organization. They reflect hierarchy, seniority, responsibilities, pay scales, and every organization has its own language for describing different positions. And you may not have a lot of flexibility about the official title for a new position that you're going to fill. That being said, there's really no rule that the job title you use on your job post has to match the official job title. And when employers use a vague or bureaucratic title for a job post, it can really stifle the total number of views and the response rate you get from applicants. Remember, when people are browsing through job postings, they usually only see the job title first. They often have to click through the link to get the other details. And if the job seeker doesn't understand the job title you've used, they're likely to skip right past your listing. Of course, sometimes you might use industry or role-specific language to preempt to screen candidates, but you don't want to scare away quality leads because of a misunderstanding on the candidate's part. I really encourage you to use titles in your job posts that outsiders can understand. This can take the form of commonly known job titles or position titles that emphasize the actual responsibilities within the job. So instead of a title like, say, Environmental Lead 4, you might say something like Environmental Program Manager. And instead of Chief Happiness Officer, which is a witty title, it might be better to say Human Resource Director. You can always clarify the formal job title in a detailed job description. Okay, we've got a question from Becky.
Yeah, a question from Natalia in the comments. She actually has a specific question about where you should post an AmeriCorps job. So it's an AmeriCorps Vista position that's like, it's full-time, 40 hours per week, commitment for a full year, but technically it's a volunteer position and they pay a living allowance of like $12,000 per year.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, she asked on Mac's List, should that post live on the jobs or the internships or the volunteers tab?
Thanks for the question, Natalia. Because it's a full-time position, I mean, I would recommend putting it in the jobs tab. It also could be driven by your choice could also be influenced by the candidates you want to attract. I think when you do put it in volunteer or internships, you're likely to get fewer people seeking full-time positions. And given that you're looking for someone who wants to work 40 hours a week, that will work 40 hours a week, I think you would be best served by putting it in the jobs section, because that's where people seeking full-time employment look first. I do think it's important with any position, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, Natalia, to list the salary. And I think by being clear about the stipend that comes with this position, that's going to help you attract the candidates who can work within that stipend and are going to be motivated to both apply for the job and pursue it. Okay. Other questions, Becky? All right. Thank you for that question. And again, please add your questions in the comments section as we go along. Tip number 2, and again, we're going to go through 10 tips here. And this is include a salary range. And we just talked about this or touched on it. This is a big one. This, in fact, research shows is the number one thing that keeps candidates from applying for a job. It's the lack of salary information. Job seekers bring this up a lot with us here at Mac's List. And the reason they do is they say they're looking for transparency when applying for jobs. And candidly, they've got skepticism, and they even feel a little distrust about employers who don't post a salary. Again, we're just sharing what we're hearing from job seekers. Including a salary can actually hurt you in several ways. First, you scare away a sizable number of qualified candidates who fear they're wasting their time applying for a job that might not pay them for the skills they have. And at the same time, you might attract candidates who aren't willing to accept the job at the salary you can pay them. That means you could end up wasting a lot of time reviewing resumes and interviewing people you can't actually hire. So I really, really encourage you to include a salary in your job post. In fact, I would say if there's one thing you do out of these 10 tips, this would be it. There's a survey that was shared at the conference, at a job board conference that Ben and I attended in April, and it found that including a salary in a job post can increase your applications by 70%. So you don't need to put in a specific salary number. If you have a range, just sharing that range, that salary range can generate new leads. And if you're reluctant to share a specific number, I encourage you to include a salary range, and it can be wide. It can be $10,000 or $20,000 or even $30,000. Candidates who see that will understand that in terms of expectations, that they're likely will start in the middle or somewhere at the start of the scale. So Ben?
We have a question here from Cynthia who says, when you say range, do you mean it's important to include a range or just one starting salary figure?
I think I would recommend a range, just because that gives you more flexibility in you're likely to attract more candidates. Obviously, it has to be a range that your budget supports, and you have to be willing to negotiate within that range. But if you do have that number, Cynthia, I would put it in. with the challenge with limiting yourself to a starting salary is some candidates might look at that and say that's the beginning and the end, and you're not prepared to go beyond that. And if in fact you have a budget that allows you to go beyond a starting salary, put that in the position description, and you'll attract a wider field of candidates. And having a range will give you more flexibility in negotiation.
So this is a topic that's a hot one on both sides of the equation for both job seekers and employers.
Yeah.
Other folks are saying, Tim says it's a catch-22 for third-party recruiters. It becomes a huge challenge because clients might not want the range communicated as well.
Yeah. Tim, I get this. I hear from employers who don't want to share the range. And and I know that, and if you're working for an employer like that as a recruiter, obviously you need to serve your client, and you can only share the information that your client is prepared to share. The reason we bring this up is because we hear from employers as a job board operator that sometimes they're disappointed by the number of applications they receive, and they want to increase the number of applications and attract more candidates. And often to do that, they will try other things like investing in more ads. They'll add more time to a search. In other words, they end up spending more money and spending more time. If you're looking for a surefire way to attract more candidates without spending more time and more money, the research shows that you'll get more applications by publishing a salary range. It's got to be accurate, it's got to be supported by your budget. But if your goal is to get more candidates, this is an effective way to do it. Okay, well, let's move on to tip number 3. Talk about employee benefits. The unemployment rate right now is very low. It's a very strong economy, and that means hiring is turned into a seller's market. And the competition for talent is getting more fierce. And sometimes, as you all know, you can't compete for talent on price alone. And if you're limited in the amount of salary you can offer candidates, and candidly, we all have to work within our budgets, then you have to find other ways to attract the best possible employees. One way you can do this is by playing up and emphasizing other employee perks besides salary. This could mean formal benefits like health care, retirement, vacation time. It can also include perks like flex scheduling, or the ability to work remotely or at home, or family leave. Recently, I talked with a university here in Portland, and one of the benefits that the school would pay for employees' children is to attend that college or any other accredited school in the country. And that's a huge benefit. It can add tens of thousands of dollars to a compensation package. But surprisingly, the university hasn't been heavily promoting that benefit, and it's probably missed out on lots of candidates as a result. So don't make the compensation issue all about money. If you offer great benefits, let job seekers know that. And that ties into my next step, which is emphasizing the culture of your organization. Job seekers aren't simply looking for a salary. Increasingly, they care about the culture and the values of prospective employers. In fact, at least 30% of survey respondents said that a company reputation was the primary determinant of whether or not they applied for a job. So people who are looking for employment opportunities that jive with their own values, passions, and lifestyle, don't be afraid to talk about your office culture and your organizational values. This can be a real magnet for the right kind of people. This is actually a trend you see in hiring at many of the biggest employers in the country. There's a growing belief that finding talent is, at its heart, a marketing activity rather than just a personnel process. You can, check out, for example, the career opportunities page for General Electric or Nike. you'll see that they really emphasize corporate branding and values as part of their talent acquisition strategy. Another company that does this really well is Zappos, the online shoe company. They really make the culture a primary focus. It's even a selling point in the recruitment process. I encourage you to do the same. Really think of your job post as an opportunity to brand your organization and share your vision, your mission, and culture. If you've got a video about your organization, include it, if possible, in the job post itself. Again, this is going to help you attract not only more candidates, but the kind of candidates who will best fit your organization. Okay, this is a tactical one, but it's a great and simple way to increase the number of your applications. Post your job early in the work week. Here at MaxList, we always see a big surge of business on Friday afternoon. And when we talk to other job board operators, we hear the same thing. A lot of organizations post a new job opening just before taking off for the weekend. And there's a historical reason for this. 30 years ago, most people did their job searches on weekends. Job seekers were either too busy during the week or they were waiting for that big help wanted section that came out in the Sunday paper. And employers, as a result, posted their jobs to coincide when employees were most engaged in the search process. But I know you're not going to be surprised to hear this. Things have changed since the arrival of the internet, and job seeker behavior has changed as well. People are now more likely to look for work during weekdays, and they actually take time off from their search on the weekend. According to research done by LinkedIn, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are the most popular days for candidates to view and apply for jobs. And let me share an uncomfortable truth here. When we're talking about job seekers who are already employed, many, if not most of them, are looking for that next new gig from their work desktop. So if you want to connect with the most possible candidates, you need to post your jobs when people are most engaged. Don't wait until Friday evening because by Monday, it'll be last week's news. Instead, post your jobs early in the work week. And this schedule better aligns with how the candidates look for jobs, and you'll get the most possible views from engaged candidates. Tip number 6, avoid gendered keywords. If you're serious about finding the absolute best candidate, you don't want to do something that excludes women, who make up more than half of the eligible workforce. Now, I know nobody on this webinar would include a job description that says, quote, "women need not apply," close quote. But the truth is that unconscious gender bias has a way of sneaking into job descriptions. One way this plays out is in the words we use to describe jobs. Many of the terms you find in an average job description are gender coded. It means they evoke strongly masculine or feminine imagery. For example, a job description seeking a, quote, sales ninja is going to resonate more with men. That same description that frames sales as partnerships will attract more women. That's an extreme example, but most of the gender coding is more subtle. Google the phrase, quote, gender job description, close quote, and you'll find a whole list of gender coded terms. The point here is that the words you choose matter. 70% of job descriptions have gendered keywords, and these can subtly dissuade good candidates from applying. The impact isn't just with gender demographics. It can also affect the application rates for minority groups. One study showed that gender-neutral job descriptions generated 42% more applications. And again, if your goal is to get more applications and to hear from, cast as wide a net and hear from as many communities as possible, this is a way to do it. Interestingly, that same study found that there was an increase in applications from both women and men. Implementing this change can be tough. We all have some subtle unconscious biases within us, However, there are lots of free online tools you can use to identify gendered keywords in your job summary. I think Ben and Becky are sharing some in the comments section right now. So check out your chat window. Tip number 7, prioritize job requirements. And this is a practice that can really affect candidate diversity. It's how you frame the job requirements. I post jobs for my 2 companies all the time. I run both Mac's List and Prichard Communications, a public relations firm. And I know that job descriptions can become a laundry list of loosely associated responsibilities that I hope the future employee might have. In many cases, it's a wish list. And I don't expect to find a candidate that meets each and every requirement. But from talking with other HR professionals, I know this dynamic is true in many organizations. Most hiring managers are thrilled if they can get a candidate who meets 75% of the qualifications. Now, we all want to shoot for the moon when we hire, but the problem is, however, when we do this, it affects who applies for the job. Many superbly qualified candidates get scared off because they don't meet 100% of the qualifications. Again, one study found that men will apply for a job if they meet 60% of the requirements. Women, on the other hand, will apply if they meet 90 to 100% of the requirements. That means that you're probably losing out on talking to a lot of amazing female candidates. Now, my suggestion here isn't to lower your qualifications. Instead, I encourage you to prioritize your requirements. Think critically about what the true mandatory must-have requirements are and label them as such. Other qualifications can be listed as preferred or bonus. Framing your requirements this way lets you share your wish list without making each and every qualification a litmus test for whether a candidate should apply. And let's switch gears here and talk about the application process itself and how you can streamline submissions to get the best quality and the most quantity of candidates. Here's a simple tip. Just be clear with your application instructions. I know this sounds basic, but you can't believe how often I see organizations mess this up. Sometimes it's as simple as having a typo in the email address or URL where candidates are to send their applications. Other times I've seen employers offer 3 or 4 different application processes, only one of which they actually use to screen the candidates. You need to be crystal clear on what it is you expect in terms of application materials. If you really want or require a cover letter, make sure you say so. Many job seekers will only include a cover letter if they're prompted to do so. This is particularly true of millennials. And while I lament this trend, and I always encourage job seekers to include a cover letter, you need to say this explicitly if you want it. So put it in the job description. Tip number 9. This also deals with the application process. Tell applicants that you will respond to their application. I talk to just hundreds of job seekers every year, and next to the concerns about salary ranges and in postings, the other thing I hear again and again is that people apply for jobs and they never hear back. They don't even get a confirmation message or a rejection letter. And this often leads to, candidly, resentment and distrust. Now, remember, job seekers are looking for employers who align with their values and do business in a transparent way. How we treat candidates in the hiring process is one way we can put our values into practice. So I recommend you include in your job description a statement that says you'll respond to every application. I guarantee this is going to increase interest in your organization and your job. You're going to stand out from other employers. And I am an employer too. I've got 7 employees, and I understand it can be a challenge to respond to each application. You don't need to send out customized messages to everyone. You can set up a simple autoresponder to let people know that you've received their application, and we'll follow up if they make the next round. But even this a little communication can give you a huge advantage in attracting candidates and applicants. And the upshot here is you're not going to be burning any bridges with job seekers or associating negative experiences with your brand. You're much more likely to have people apply for future jobs with your organization if you treat them right the first time. It's also possible that people who apply for your job openings are also your customers or your potential customers. So don't burn those relationships. Do the simple follow through.
Hey, Mac. So we did a quick survey here, and we asked everyone listening whether they communicate with everyone who applies to their job, either directly or with an automated sequence. And about 60% of folks here say that they do. Now, an interesting stat that you and I learned a few weeks ago is when you ask employers nationwide, about 80% of them say that they send at least a confirmation email to every applicant. And when you ask job seekers, 80% of them say that they never get anything back from employers. So there's clearly a divide there, and whether it's one of those sides is lying or there's a technology thing getting in the way or it's going to a spam box, the perception on the job seeker side is that employers don't care and aren't even doing the basics of communication.
Well, I encourage the employers who aren't sending out these acknowledgments to do so, and because again, it'll create a lot of goodwill, and also if and it would just chip away at that negative feeling out there. Let's move on. Oh, we got another one from Becky.
Yeah, this is interesting. So Eric says he's talking about sort of the language that he should be using in job postings. He says many job postings and cover letters, resumes use very casual language, like the sales ninja or like looking for a sassy whatever, or I'm your dream employee, etc. I think that casual language tends to make the communication less clear. But do you think I'm missing out on younger applicants who may be more used to or may prefer that sort of casual language in the job posting?
So his question is, should he use casual language in job postings?
Yeah, because it is a trend. Like I see that in job postings all the time too, right? It's like, oh yeah, just sort of very generic or casual sort of conversational almost, and not like a very formal, this is the job title and this is the description sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that you're always at an advantage when you use clear, easily understood language. And while I don't think you want to be too informal, I think that the less formal and the more friendly you can make your job postings, the more candidates you'll attract, because it'll be easier for people to understand what it is you're looking for, and therefore you're more likely to attract the most qualified people. And you'll also candidly stand out because there are a lot of job postings out there that are just written in formal, bureaucratic, stilted language. And so when you choose a different approach, you'll be seen as unique.
Mm-hmm. As long as you make sure that the description is clear, right?
Yeah.
I think that sometimes those very conversational, casual descriptions are just like fun and don't describe the actual job. So I think it's a balance.
I agree, Becky. And I think the key here is to be clear about what you want and do it in a way that's understandable to the reader, because ultimately you want to attract candidates who can provide the skills that you need and solve the problems that you have.
Cool.
Okay. So my last, here's tip number 10. And this might sound like kind of an administrative task, but I think it's one that'll help you measure the value of what you're getting from your job posts. And that's track where your applicants are coming from. You might be posting on a single site or on multiple job boards. Whatever you do, whatever your strategy, you got to know where your results are coming from. And some job boards and the audiences they curate are going to work better for you than others. It really depends on your niche and your needs. But you can't know if a job post or job site is working for you unless you're tracking performance. That's why it's so important to know the source for every applicant and every person you interview, and ultimately the person you hire. How did these people find you? Now, a lot of organizations have applicant tracking systems. The acronym is ATS, and these can help figure this information out. But if you don't have an ATS, the easy way to track performance is simply ask candidates where they found the job. This can be an imperfect measure because you're only hearing from a small pool of people who respond, but it'll give you data that you can use to review and make informed decisions about how to conduct your next search. If you find that most of your best candidates are coming from the same sites, job boards, and other sources, that's a sign you're getting good value. If you're not getting quality applications from a site, that tells you something as well. So that's the end of my formal remarks. Let me bring you to just a recap here. Here are the 10 things you can do to get the most value from your online post. Number 1, use a title people will understand. Number 2, tell people the salary. 3, talk about the other benefits besides salary. 4, share your company culture and brand. Number 5, this is so simple, but it can make a huge difference. Post early in the week, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. 6, pay attention to gendered keywords. Invest time in using free online tools to identify this language and make changes. 7, prioritize your requirements. 8, give clear, detailed application instructions that are simple and send people to where you really want them to go. 9, tell people you're going to get back to them and do it. And finally, number 10, track where your applicants are coming from. So if you do these 10 things, or even just a handful of them, you're going to get the most out of the investment you're making in any job post. And most importantly, you're going to get you're more likely to find the best candidates for your jobs. So we've got about 20 minutes left together as a group, and I'd love to answer your questions about the sourcing process. Thank you for everybody who's posted a question in the comments so far. And let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions that have come up the last few minutes. So this one is circling back on the follow-up to applicants. So Stephanie asks about quick apply on sites like Indeed and LinkedIn when it's that sort of one-click application. They're maybe just sending a generic profile. Mm-hmm. And she says she's receiving like hundreds of resumes each week. It's just not efficient or possible to respond to all of them. Would you recommend just like an automated sort of form response or some other way to respond to those folks?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Stephanie. I think whether you're getting 2 or 200 or even 2,000 applications, you're going to create so much goodwill by acknowledging the receipt. And there are automated tools you can use to send out even a simple 2 or 3 sentence acknowledgement by email. I encourage you to talk to your IT people about that. And it will, might require a little bit of investment and time up front, a few hours, but it's going to pay so many dividends down the road.
Erica asks, I work with a company that has many different locations, offices, so the work culture varies from office to office. How can I incorporate that culture statement into the job posting so that it appeals to candidates while also making it clear that the specific culture isn't necessarily the same at every job site?
If possible, I would try to, if a position is tied to a particular job site, I would talk about the culture at that job site. And then every company, no matter how many buildings or job sites or locations it might have, has a culture. And I'd encourage you to talk about the company-wide culture, and whether you're a national firm or statewide or you're operating in a city with different branches, there's a culture there that spreads across all the job sites. And I think if you've got access your CEO or president should have a good understanding of that, and certainly a marketing communications section, if it exists, can help you with that as well.
Great, thanks. Tim has a question from Twitter. He says, how many employers confuse job ads with job descriptions?
We're talking about employers,
Yeah.
is Tim's question?
Mm-hmm. So job ads versus job descriptions.
Well, the job ad ideally is a very abbreviated version of a more complete job description, but they should both be a summary of the same gig. I think that I think most employers have a good understanding of that you need to be shorter and more to the point in a job posting versus a more detailed description that might exist in an HR file. But I think the key thing here is while there might be a 5-page job position description in an HR department, you've got to, whether you're posting a 1-page ad on a job board or even a 140-character announcement on Twitter, be clear about what you want, what you have to offer. And if you do need to put something out in a more abbreviated form, whether it's a display ad in a print publication, a tweet, there should be some kind of breadcrumb trail that leads back to a fuller description. Whatever the form the documents take or their length, the principles are the same. You need to be clear about what you want, what you offer, and address some of these tips. And each of those formats offers you the chance to use some of the tips we've talked about today.
Mm-hmm. My perception, I see a lot of the job posts that come through on Mac's List, is that employers write up a formal job description, which really is an HR tool, so that people know what their jobs are, and HR has some metrics to judge people if they're doing a good or bad job. But then they also use that as a job post. And it's really two different audiences you're speaking to. And so I always tell folks, and this gets to the very first point today, there's the formal title of the job, your environmental manager 6, whatever that means. I don't know. But
it means something.
It means something to the organization.
Human Resources Department. There's probably an organization chart and pay scales. And
exactly.
Things that matter.
But outside of the organization, very few people know what that means. And so it turns off a lot of candidates. Your dream candidate might pass right by because they just don't understand the title.
Right.
So thinking through the audience, the external audience, when you're making that post on Mac's List or Indeed or anywhere else, as opposed to just copying and pasting the formal job description over.
Yeah. And to Tim's original question, I think employers who do understand that difference and position their external material accordingly probably will get more applications and probably hear from more qualified candidates.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, guys. So Eric has a question. He says, I see many postings that do not mention the posting company. What would be the advantage of keeping my company name anonymous? I actually just saw one come through on the Tuesday jobs email that I just sent out. It was like PR agency hiring PR associate or whatever it was.
Yeah. I think that employers who use, in the old days, these were called blind ads. Back in the newspaper days, might be a P.O. box, and it might say, public relations manager, apply P.O. box, the Oregonian. Mm-hmm. I think companies who use these blind ads are concerned about receiving calls or unsolicited applications, and so they think that it will make it easier for them to manage the hiring process. I would disagree. I think that if your goal as an employer is to attract the best candidates, you want to tell people that you're looking, and you want to tell people who you are, because the best candidates always come through because your company is best candidates are going to be attracted to your company's culture, your reputation, and to the talent that you have, the people who work there. And so by being upfront about who you are and what you have to offer, you're going to get more and better candidates. I think if you have a choice between applying to P.O. Box 150 and Wyden and Kennedy, and you only have time to do one application, which one are you going to do?
Right. There's a couple comments on this question. So
Okay.
Scott's saying blind ads are typically from contract recruiters. They don't list the company because they want the candidate to go through them.
Okay.
And Natalia says, as a job seeker, yeah, she's reflecting your point. I would almost never apply to an anonymous company because company culture is so important. Let's see. Another question I had. So Cynthia asks, I have found that fund development positions are the hardest to find qualified applicants for. Any suggestions on how to get good candidates in this field?
So I'm guessing, Becky, are we talking about fundraising
Probably,
jobs here?
yeah, like development managers, development directors, things like that.
Okay.
People who are trying to get grants and stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's challenging because the people who do this well are in high demand, and the people who don't do it well are, it often they have to have the experience before they can show what they can do. So I think that the employers we talk to, and this might seem startling coming from a job board operator, but the employers we talk to who are most successful in attracting the candidates they want, particularly when there's a lot of competition for people who are in high demand, they don't limit themselves just to job boards. They reach out to their professional networks, their employees, their partners, and they tap into recruiters as well. So I would, if you haven't done so, if you're only relying on a job posting, I would encourage you to step back and think about your recruitment strategy. If you're looking for, I think one of the most effective ways to find great people, in addition to public postings, is on job boards, is to tap into your network and people. Because then you're going to uncover great people who are doing good work, and it's going to. I think you'll be pleased with the results.
Cool. Okay. Kevin is asking for tips for standing out when all the job titles are pretty generic or sort of the same sort of title, like project manager. Is that a situation where you would want to add some sort of really casual language, or?
Well, I think this is underscores the point we were talking about earlier, Becky, about the value of the reputation that your company has, and the people who work for you. Particularly if you're hiring an account manager or program manager, these are often jobs for people early in their career, 3, 5, 7 years. They're going to want to work at places that are doing interesting work. The best people, the ones who are most demand, are going to want to work at employers who are doing interesting work and attract the best talent. So if you want to stand out, you can play with the job title, but I think what matters most is talking about your company's culture, your values, and being clear about what the job requires. And if there are opportunities to grow at that company, or there's a commitment to professional development, that can also distinguish you from other employers.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, it's particularly important for people who are, I mean, this is wherever you are in your career, you're always thinking about, where's this job going to take me eventually? And if both in the posting and in your conversations with candidates, if you can talk about the internal path for growth you offer it, and how people can take advantage of that, that's going to make you attractive. If you can work that, include some reference to that in your job posting, or perhaps in links to more content on your website, that's going to help you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those titles I think are important for folks that are young, like newer in their careers, that they're thinking about what title is going to look good on their LinkedIn and their resume and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, any other questions? We are sort of running out. A few minutes left. Feel free to jump in.
Rebecca asks, are there any good ideas where I can find COBOL programmers? I got to admit, I barely know what COBOL is, but I know it's a programming thing.
You know, I don't know if there's a COBOL job board. I did meet a Python developers, a fellow who runs here in Portland, a job board for Python people. So that would be my first suggestion. Tap into the COBOL community. Then I would look for organizations that might have job boards, or certainly events that attract programmers in that language. And those would be my two ideas.
Yeah, there's a ton of meetups all around technology, at least here in Portland, and I'm guessing a lot of other cities. That's a good place. Silicon Florist has a job board. It's not a very heavily trafficked one, but there's some good job boards there.
It's a great site. Yeah.
And the Technology Association of Oregon, we are actually their job board as well. And so you'll find a lot of tech jobs there and a lot of talent looks there. But a lot of their networking events, I think, attract programmers and talent like that. So.
Yeah. And there's an estimate out there. There are 40,000 niche job boards in North America. And so some of these boards might have just a few dozen listings. But if it's a specific thing like COBOL programmers, that might be just the right number for you. Mm-hmm. And even though they might only have a few numbers or a few dozen listings, they can be quite popular among the people looking for work in those fields. So when you're an employer and you're trying to fill a very specific job, whether it's graphic design or writing or public relations or computer programming, usually there's an association, or as Ben said, a meetup connected with that occupation. And then if there's a professional group, there's often a niche job board. And getting in touch with those associations or meetups will help you uncover those job boards.
Yeah, and when we start talking about very niche jobs, where there's very high technical skill needed, but not a whole lot of supply in terms of talent, that's where you might get into the realm of needing to go through a recruiter to find them.
Yeah. Cool. And there's some resources going on in the chat box too. Thanks, guys, for sharing some of those. It looks like COBOL is more of a legacy development tool, and it's a state of Oregon sort of thing. So that makes sense.
The state government has a lot of
Yeah. Cool. All right. And then I've got another one from Eric. He says, we hire commission salespeople. Our current employees make between $40 to $100 depending on performance. So that commission-based compensation. How would you set a range for that sort of job posting?
Is that $40 to $100 an hour, or?
It doesn't say. Probably like each sale or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It might be 40 to 100,000 annual, depending on commission.
Yeah.
That could be.
Well, I think whatever the position, whatever facts you share in the interview about compensation, whether it's there's a base salary plus commission.
It's per year.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a big range.
Yeah, I think it's okay to put the big range in, Eric, and people who are will understand that and will be attracted to it. Others will not. They'll probably may not want to take the kinds of risks that sales bring, but that's okay because you want to attract the people who do.
And just be clear that it's based on commission, and you have this potential for large commissions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think being upfront about how the compensation works, whatever the position, will attract the people who are comfortable with that package and are excited about it. It will also screen out the people who are uncomfortable with that approach, and that's okay because that's you want to screen those people out before they come in for an interview. Mm-hmm. That's going to save you time and money in the long run.
Yeah, totally. All right, last call for questions.
Okay.
That's it. That's all we got.
Okay. Well, thank you, Becky and Ben, and thank you all for joining us. Brings us to the end of our time today. And I hope you've walked away with some actionable ideas about how to make the best of your next job posting. As I mentioned at the start, our session, we'll send out a brief survey today. We want to get your opinion about today's presentation. We'd also love to hear from you about other topics you'd like us to address. And it won't take more than 3 minutes to complete the survey, and we'd love to get your feedback because that'll help us serve you better. We've organized this webinar because a lot of the employers who work with us told us they needed help writing better job descriptions, and we're honored and flattered they would turn to us for that advice. And that's what inspired us to do today's presentation. And if there are other hiring or HR topics we can help you with, let us know. Again, you could put something in the comment box or respond in the survey, or just send me an email. My email address is really easy. It's just mac, M-A-C, @maxlist.org. And based on what we hear from you all, we plan to organize similar presentations in the future. Again, if you have any questions about MaxList or job posting, call me or rather write me anytime. And I do respond to every email, and I appreciate you all joining us today. Have a great afternoon.